Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Urban Design Summit in Glasgow. I think we're all excited to be here because at the moment there's a lot of hope targeted at the discussions at the COP26. And we hope with today's debate and discussion and ideas that we will contribute to transforming some of that hope into kind of a lived reality. Today for us is also a bit exciting because it's the first time that we are doing this in a slightly different format. So we're having speakers with us in the studio, and I think we're on top of all the tech, and the team has been working really hard, but please bear with us if there are any glitches on the way. We kick off the day, and it's going to be, I think, a really, really exciting day with lots of different speakers, discussions, workshops, and looking at climate repair, capacity building, different interviews and roundtable discussions, and how we can put us and our industry and the whole kind of built environment industry on a good footing to actually deliver the kind of better places that we need. And talking about better places, we want to kick off the day with the People Friendly Places Award. And there can't really be a better location than the Climate Summit to tell you about this award. As you may know, our National Urban Design Awards celebrate the best in design of towns and cities, streets and spaces. And after a short break, we relaunched these awards with new categories earlier in the year. So it's kind of demonstrating and showing all the work, the different types of work that our practitioners are doing. And the one category we are going to talk about this morning really goes to the core of the UDG's beliefs in people-friendly places. We believe that the sole purpose of the built environment profession, planning, architecture, engineering, urban design, is to create better, positive places for human habitation. Over the last week, we've talked and cared about the climate change because we need to ensure that our planet remains habitable, that it remains a place where people can live healthy lives and not threatened by food scarcity, flooding, extreme weather events. We know that to create people-friendly places, we need to care about the environment, we need to care about the climate, and bring all of those together because we can't do one without the other. So for us, people-friendly places really encompasses places that have a positive relationship with nature, address climate change, and that are places that allow people to live healthy and happy lives. We have many exemplar projects within the country and around the world, but the one thing that we want to draw attention to in the People Friendly Places Award is how we can turn the exemplars to become the norm. We believe that it should be easier to create people-friendly places, really high-quality design places, than mediocre and poor places. Unfortunately, at the moment, it often seems easier to create lower quality places than actually to kind of create the exemplar projects we all want to see become the norm. So we have asked our kind of finalists for the Places People Award to demonstrate how outstanding urban design could become the norm, what are the barriers, what do we need to do, and how urban design can make a contribution to preventing and coping with climate change. So I think it's enough for me as an introduction. I will now hand over to Rory, who will present one of the finalists. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Katja. My name is Rory Olcayto. I'm writer and critic at Pollard Edwards, and we're a finalist for our project City Park West in Chelmsford. So I'm here to talk to you today about people-friendly places in relation to that project. But I'm going to focus less on its kind of technical stats and more about its qualities. You know, what are the ingredients that make good people-friendly places? And alternating with slides and commentary on City Park West, I'm going to talk about Glasgow as well. We're in Glasgow, COP26 is here. I lived near or in Glasgow for 35 years. I'm very passionate about Glasgow, but I'm also very concerned about its future. A lot of kind of poor urban development taking place here, and you know, given the kind of tradition of great architecture, the gridiron, the parks, the tenement, you know, Glasgow should be doing better. So, what can we learn from City Park West, and how can it be applied elsewhere? So, if we could have the first slide, please. The first slide is really just an image of people enjoying City Park West. It's a new residential quarter in Chelmsford. It comprises more than 600 homes, alongside cafes, restaurants, public realm, sculpture, workplaces, and community facilities. It was built over 2 phases, and it connects parkland to the south with the civic quarter and the historic market town centre to the east. It's located by a railway station on the former Anglia Ruskin University campus, and it features 5 new brick buildings, including a 14-storey tower, 4 new public spaces, and 3 refurbished buildings, one of which is listed. Next slide, please. This image here shows. This image here shows how the project actually, as well as providing new homes and refurbished buildings, it kind of blends various districts of the town together. It kind of works as a kind of jigsaw piece. So the new neighbourhood, City Park West, reconnects the built environment of Chelmsford that had been disjointed for years by dual carriage highways and you know, a brownfield site in the middle of the centre that was left unused. So the development, as well as providing homes and places to work and places to enjoy, it brings coherence to Chelmsford's townscape. As I said, it links you know, the new station square through to the large open green spaces of Central Park to the south, links with the civic quarter and Chelmsford Library, the County Hall, etc. to the east, and then connects with the cultural district of the West End as well. So, you know, good placemaking is about the specific, delivering on homes, but also about making a positive contribution to the townscape and the urban landscape. Next slide, please. So I juxtaposed that diagram there, which showed the kind of holistic approach of City Park West with, you know, a kind of anti-holistic project in Glasgow. This is an image of the pathway on the left-hand side that was cleared for the motorway, the M8, which crashes through what was once a very coherent city, where the West End and the city centre were just flowed into each other. I mean, this looks like kind of warlike aggression. This is unbelievable to see this amount of destruction now. You know, looking back, it's like, what were we thinking? On the right-hand side, you see another image. And this was produced by a team of architects and urbanists who call themselves Replace the M8. You can find them on Twitter. Their handle is Replace the M8. And, you know, this is the kind of big thinking that Greta Thunberg was calling for. This isn't blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we need these kind of moonshot projects, basically undoing the M8 to safeguard all of our futures. Next slide, please. Another one of the key ingredients is to basically reduce dependency on car journeys and make your developments public transport friendly. This image shows that the railway tower just in the distance there, reminding us that this development is next to the railway. Next slide, please. Shows it more clearly. You know, some commentators have said that this model is under threat because of the pandemic, which has led to so much working from home. But in my view, and I'm sure many of my colleagues would agree, making homes close to public transport links is just good planning and will hopefully outlast the pandemic. Next slide, please. Here I've highlighted a site in Glasgow, the big green patch there. This is behind the old meat market in Belgrove, and the railway station is just down in the sort of bottom right-hand corner And there are hundreds of sites like this in central Glasgow. And really, we must be concentrating on densifying the centre of Glasgow. It's got one of the lowest residential populations of any city centre in the UK, and that has to change. Next slide, please. The point I'm making here, the ingredient I'm talking about here is learning from the past. And we call this market town urbanism. We've created a network of streets and public spaces that revives the intimacy and charm of old Chelmsford. Human-scaled architecture is the easiest way to create a welcoming sense of place. So that means making homes and the streets that service the homes scaled in relation to the human body rather than a car or a lorry, for example. And often existing architecture that has endured through the ages provides us with good working models to emulate. In Chelmsford, it's the intimate scale of historic Essex market towns. In Glasgow, the obvious cue is the tenement. Typically 4 stories, but I'd suggest going forward that we could build up to 6 stories in new builds. Edinburgh does 6-story tenements pretty successfully without losing that sense of human scale. So why do we end up with rubbish as, like I'm going to show you in the next slide, actually? So this is just absolute rubbish. This just makes me very, very angry. This is a development in Rockhill Hospital. It's by Bellway, and it's very much a mismatched vision of suburbia for the inner city. It's a former hospital site. So initial plans were criticised as being cut and paste plans for identikit properties that did not respect the history of the site or the city's housing architecture. There's 160% parking spaces here. And a brilliant MSP called Paul Sweeney, I recommend, if you're interested in architecture and urbanism, follow this guy on Twitter. He's the only politician that I am aware of who talks sensibly about architecture and urban design and the role it has to play in making our lives more vital and more equal. Where he said the design proposed is a weak and old-fashioned suburban gated community of expensive private homes in a sea of car parking. There was a vociferous campaign from local residents, but this is still absolutely going to be a gated community. We've got to collectively work against this rubbish. Next slide, please. The other ingredient, retrofitting, or rather practical restoration of historic buildings. We need to retrofit the future of our towns and cities. In City Park West, 3 heritage buildings, all from different eras, were carefully restored and brought back into use, creating local jobs. One of them, the Ann Knight building, is a former Quaker meeting house built in the 1820s. It's got 2 sturdy Greek Doric columns at its entrance. It's now an entrance. The one that you see in the image on the right is the Frederick Chancellor building. It was designed by a local architect and Chelmsford's first mayor, Frederick Chancellor. Previously, it's been a library, art studios, dance studios, lecture halls. Now it's the regional headquarters for Notting Hill Genesis, who are the client behind City Park West, giving them an immediate presence on the road site, which has helped with facilities management as well, actually, because they very much want to look after their own patch. The other building we brought back into use is an Art Deco building, and that's a partial sort of retention. It's been largely converted into office space with penthouse apartments. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, in Glasgow, this former Partick Baptist Church on Crow Road is set for demolition. Unknown developers lodged plans with the council last month to demolish it. It's now been granted. This church was actually built in 1927 by an architect called Andrew Black, that the website scottisharchitects.org describes as a fine draftsman and an influential teacher of Charles Rennie Mackintosh. But the city leaders of Glasgow don't seem to recognise what they have, what quality they have, and the opportunities they have to keep these buildings, reuse them, and really start to think that demolition is a sign of failure, that we should presume against demolition, that we should retrofit first where possible. Next slide, please. Next point is making walkable and cycle-friendly neighbourhoods. We need to cut carbon by keeping fit and improving well-being. So that's what we've done at City Park West. We've created a network of pedestrian routes and public spaces, enhanced by 2 fountains and 2 public artworks. One of them an interactive video display, and the other text carved into paving and benches and steps. And these define a number of different kind of distinct neighbourhoods in City Park West. If we could have the next slide, please. The point I suppose I'm trying to make is that we need to design and build places that people love to be part of, whether it's residents or visitors. This is Ashton Lane in Glasgow. Everybody loves Ashton Lane. There's a mix of fun things to do. You can eat, drink, listen, watch. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make here, it's again my Glasgow obsession, is Glasgow has this incredible lanes network. In the city centre, in the Gridiron, it has a number of infrastructural lanes behind each of the blocks that run the full length of the city centre. It's an amazing infrastructure element, and it's criminally underused. They have to become proper parts of the city's public realm. We want to see them bustling with life, with cafes, bars, light industry, public space, arts, and they can provide cycle and pedestrian routes too. This isn't a dream; it should be anyway. If you want to see how it can be done, just look at Melbourne, Google Earth Melbourne, and look at their downtown lanes. Incredible. We can do the same in Glasgow. Next slide, please. Another key point: we want to make diverse neighbourhoods. We need to foster diverse neighbourhoods, and one key way of doing that is multi-generational planning. A range of home types and tenures, so that families and first-time buyers and older citizens requiring extra care can live in City Park West. And everywhere we build should be like that. We need to build communities around older people. I think that's changing, and the industry is beginning to understand that, but we need to stop pushing older people to the edges of our cities in isolated greenfield housing where they're disconnected from the rest of the town and people they know and love. Third age homes located in the heart of walkable, cycle-friendly 15-minute neighbourhoods where local amenities are just a short walk away. Interestingly, at Pollard Thomas Edwards, we've been finding that since we were a founding partner of HAPPY, the Housing Our Ageing Population panel for innovation in 2009, we found that what works best for older people pretty much works best for everyone. So if you design places for older people, you're designing places for everyone. It's pretty simple stuff. We need to, if we have the next slide, please. This image is just a bit fun, really. It's trying to kind of stress my point here. It's an image of the Broons. Now, the Broons are an ongoing Scottish comic strip family that have been going, perhaps since the 40s. And they remind us that multi-generational living has long been celebrated in Scotland and could be once again if we start to design our cities with age diversity in mind. In this image, you'll see that their grandpa and grandma are centre stage and they have their entire family around them. And that's the kind of places we should be making. Interestingly, at City Park West, the extra care facilities and homes are right bang in the middle of the development. Next slide, please. The other ingredient is energy efficiency and using economies of scale and new technologies to cut carbon. At City Park West, we have mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, while heating and hot water is supplied by a district heating system. Now, in truth, the technological story at City Park West isn't as strong as it could be, and this is partly because the project's origins lie in the early 2000s. But it does allow us to think in terms of scale and how much more carbon can be saved when we do things big. Next slide, please. In Glasgow, this means talking about a citywide approach to carbon-based problems, whether it's undoing the M8 or retrofitting the incredible housing legacy in the form of its Victorian and Edwardian tenements. There is actually a Glasgow green print, and it is encouraging. It's a £10 billion project that aims to upgrade and make energy efficient 428,000 homes in Glasgow. The benefit of a deep retrofit program like this is clear. As well as making a huge contribution, towards Glasgow and Scotland's net zero target, it would reduce fuel poverty, improve the health of residents, and create lots of new jobs. Again, this is the sort of moonshot project that simply has to happen. If it does, it'll be one of the cities and the UK's biggest ever public interest achievements. All cities should be aiming to do this, and we should all support it. Okay, last couple of slides now. We need to create places where people want to be. Water and landscape design can help. I mean, here, for example, this water feature marks the site of Burgess Spring, an important historic water source in the development of ancient Chelmsford, which is a Roman town. And this kind of doubles up on a point I've already made. But while we linger on this image, I think it's worth stating just how much effort was required to make this urban landscape that encourages people to linger and return to. And if you're working on projects where the landscape isn't being as thoughtfully considered as much as, say, the building's facades, there's something wrong. In this respect, City Park West has really come good in transforming a derelict brownfield site. It's helped transform a space into a place. The next slide, please. Glasgow has so much brownfield land to work with that it feels doubly important to get it right here. This is an image that describes a real place called the Hidden Gardens, and it's a great example of great landscape design. It redevelops a site behind an old tram shed in a district called Pollard. If anyone can remember, anyone watching can remember what this site was like before it was transformed. It was a dump. But it's a great example of how to transform an urban landscape and make it accessible to as many people as possible. As the image shows, you can listen to the birds, you can admire the plants, look for beasties, enjoy a picnic, run around the lawn, or find a quiet place. And that's the kind of thing we should be doing in our cities where possible. Next slide, please. And this is the last point I want to make. We need to celebrate local history and culture through the creation of public art. And at Chelmsford, the public realm is enriched with interesting, accessible artworks that celebrate contemporary and historic aspects of Chelmsford. The text that you see here engraved into the flagstones are by Chris Tipping, and they run across benches, across steps, and most prominently through a kind of stream of granite paving that connects the two main water features on the site. It's inspired by the history of Anne Knight, the famous Quaker abolitionist. She's an abolitionist and a Quaker. She didn't want to abolish the Quaker movement, and a suffragette. She was from Chelmsford, and the writing is drawn from the writing in her diaries and correspondences with her brother. The next slide, please. I wouldn't presume to tell Glasgow how to do public art. The city's rich tradition in sculpture is evidenced, by the brilliant blend of art and architecture, or sculpture and architecture that you find in the city centre. But I think it's important to stress just how important public art is to our sense of place and the sense of belonging that it can inspire in us. I mean, I still very much miss the weird bird come whale's tale that was for years on Buchanan Street, and everybody in my generation remembers it and misses it. This image that you see is the floating head that some Glaswegians may remember from the Garden Festival in Govan in 1988. It was lost for decades. It's a 26-ton sculpture created by Richard Groom, but his family recently found it in a boatyard, and Doors Open Day, Glasgow's Doors Open Day, which was the first sort of open house in the UK, has been running since 1990. They placed it back at its original riverside site this year, so let's hope that it's back for good this time. But yes, I think when we talk about urban development, we need to think about public art as well. I just have one more slide, and these are other important ingredients that don't have pics. You need a brilliant maintenance and care regime, one with skin in the game, so the people who are maintaining and caring really care about what they're looking after. I think the facilities management industry the last 30 years is one of the great disasters actually to kind of emerge out of the last 30 or 40 years of urban design and architecture. It's jobs worth rubbish. So we need to find a new way to look after our neighbourhoods and places that we make as well. You need a supportive joined up local government where departments aren't working against each other. And you need friendly neighbours who understand and want to be part of your plans because they can see the benefits. But the most important thing is an end to VAT on retrofit projects. If we don't do that, we're just going to keep on demolishing our cities. Thank you very much.